The Illuminati are a network of 13 immensely wealthy family members who control virtually everything on the earth. This is represented clearly when looking at the $1 bill in the United States. As a reoccurring theme, each group of symbols on the dollar bill add up to precisely 13. From the number of stairs leading up the all-seeing pyramid to the number of stars represented above the eagle, the symbolism represented on the dollar bill is overwhelming when one has their eyes open. Beyond just money, these secret symbols hiding in plain sight can be found all over the world. People stroll by the Vatican of Rome or Washington Monument in D.C., casually taking pictures and are completely unaware of the elaborate framework of complex architecture that surrounds them. When these city designs are viewed from above, they reveal precisely created pentagrams and unique symbology, which often represent specific star constellations. The archaic worship of these long-forgotten owners of Earth is still occurring to this day. The majority of the public is simply too naive to realize and connect these truths because of our inability to see outside the box. The easiest way to hide a secret is to put it right out in the open and make it a joke. The head of the Illuminati ruling families can be commonly identified throughout the ages and traced back by following their ancient family crest with the double-headed eagle. Whatever civilization bore the mighty eagle as its crest went on to become a warring superpower. The ancient battle between the eagle and serpent has raged for thousands of years as the gods of Zeus and Poseidon fought over mankind's civilizations. The Rothschild crest is always dominated by the color red, with the secondary color of blue. In German, red shield directly means Rothschild, which became later known as the Rothschild family dynasty. This ancient family has been inbreeding and only marrying within the family for thousands of years to protect the purity of the bloodline. Think back all throughout human history to nearly every successful military conquering society of the world, from the Romans to the Egyptians, and see the constant theme showing inbreeding as a means of securing important DNA traits. This inbreeding and the deep secrecy within these families simply cannot be ignored any longer and shows the important connections back to their ancient roots, now thought of as just a myth by society. With such expansive knowledge over the relatively simple-minded population of humans, it was no challenge working up to the highest influence of power through the lust of money. Human beings were far too busy surviving and raising families and possessed almost no access to higher learning. Knowledge and information simply wasn't readily available, and those who came of it were simply murdered or threatened when they became a problem. By infiltrating religion, government, and all forms of power, these secret families worked their way up throughout history to eventually control the entire planet and every human living on it. This information is almost impossible to comprehend unless you understand the entire story and how everything fits together. The Rothschild family dynasty was able to achieve global domination by their direct funding and monetary support for each side of a war. There was far more money to make in war than there was in peace, especially if you can create and fund the conflicts. The family's unimaginable wealth, in excess of hundreds of trillions of dollars, is almost immeasurable to most minds. Much of the truths for how sinister this family really was may never be fully known to us, as very little has been allowed to be released containing their full biography. Described as extremely experienced bankers, their unusually extensive knowledge into money made them very successful in the collaboration and combining of all major world banks. The ancient purpose for this family can still be seen in the ownership of billions of dollars in gold bullion, stored in secure banking states like those of Switzerland. This neutrally created state is entirely owned by the banking center of the family. During planning, a country was needed which could be considered neutral from war and not be at risk of losing the vast amounts of wealth stored in its banking system. Since the value of money is largely irrelevant, the true definition of wealth was in the value of gold. For hundreds of years, the price of gold on earth has been determined by the Rothschild family. Owning enormous mines all over the world, the Rothschild family still determines the daily price of gold today. This evidence shows a direct link for how this family has been able to control and manipulate currency and prices for centuries. The Rothschild dynasty represents the direct link between the Anunnaki who came here and the important bloodline process between human beings, which has occurred since before the time of the Egyptians. This overwhelmingly common theme gives direct evidence for why the bloodline obsession is so intrinsically important to these families. Many of our political leaders and rulers can all be directly traced back to this royal bloodline connection. This preservation of unique DNA traits within a human being is critical for their ability to act out such cruel and inhumane practices. When we look back at the sheer brutality of some of these leaders, it begins to become more clear as to the reasons behind their madness. Considered royal blood, these kings and queens still sit on the throne in modern-day countries like England and Saudi Arabia. The head of the Rothschild family in Europe was Mayer Amschel Rothschild, who was then preceded by his 5 sons. Mayer Amschel was an expert in banking practices and learned these valuable skills from Jacob Wolf Oppenheimer. Remember the name Jacob Wolf Oppenheimer, or it will come up generations later in the United States. Mayer Amschel Rothschild passed on this knowledge of banking and finances to his 5 sons, who were each sent to important cities in England, Italy, Germany, France, and Austria in order to establish independent branches representing the family. Each of these important European countries was chosen based on their influences over the region and the world. The Rothschilds knew that the key to controlling a country's affairs is directly through the ownership of its banking sector. In the United States, this bloodline branch of the family is famously known as the Rockefellers, who own and control large amounts of money and land. In order to secure monetary control and power, the Rockefeller family, under the close eye of the Rothschilds, created a privately owned banking subsidiary called the Federal Reserve, with the help of President William Howard Taft and Woodrow Wilson. Instead of having a government-run operation, the use of this privately owned central bank could determine all finances and monetary control over every faction of our society. The fact that the supposedly sovereign United States is run by a privately owned bank by the Rothschilds gives strong evidence for individual governing bodies being nothing more than an empty shell for this control. Those who control the money of the planet completely dictate the actions of every individual underneath them. The most notable secret society, which emerged out of the ancient Illuminati families, was the Freemasons. This fraternal branch of the ancient bloodlines included notable members such as Presidents George Washington, Harry Truman, and William Howard Taft. You will begin to see that all of this is connected and part of the agenda of the Illuminati. In all, 14 United States presidents have been confirmed as being Freemasons. One of the most important aspects to understand for what defines membership in the Freemasonry is the notion of being an illuminated mind. That means that upon acceptance into this secret society, you will be given advanced knowledge and truth, which has been kept from the general population. To become illuminated simply means to become enlightened with information. That stark reality gives further evidence to show the massive suppression of information used to control humanity. Along with the powerful Freemasons, another far more secretive society has quietly been worshipped by powerful leaders for generations, called the Skull and Bones Society. The very notion that many of our political leaders and those in places of power are attending a worship of the dark occult is extremely unsettling and unbelievable to most. I can assure you, this information is very real, and as disturbing as it may be, gives clarity to much of the truth that has gone on right under our noses. In this grand technological age, all one has to do is search for Bohemian Grove and do a little research to verify and see for yourself this information. Many of our well-known United States presidents and countless other world leaders have come to this secret retreat to pledge their loyalty towards these ruling elite families of the Illuminati. Located in the Redwood Forest of California, this elite club's entrance is adorned by a large gate emblazoned with the skull and bones in the center. These markings give further evidence for the credibility of these secret organizations. Bohemian Grove is a private, invitation-only gathering place, featuring extensive seating around a lodge bonfire with flames that light up an enormous satanic owl looming behind it. The only pictures and information we have to justify these claims can be found from those who managed to smuggle out photographs obtained from membership pamphlets. The essential goal of this secret organization is a mock sacrifice and indoctrination into its satanic society. If you look back all through history, sacrifice has been a regular theme in so many of the more sinister cultures predating us. This obsession with blood sacrifice is the overlying theme which seems to rule these secret societies under the Illuminati. I only wish to inform you of the truth and ask that you see how real all of this is for yourself. Some of the most famous and influential members of the Skull and Bones Society included well-known names like Bush, Ford, and even Oppenheimer. The full list is long, and we may never know how far back this secret cult society has actually gone. I find it incredibly fascinating and somewhat alarming that so many of our political leaders and even the designers of weapons of mass destruction were all members of the Skull and Bones Society. The famous Julius Robert Oppenheimer, a direct bloodline descendant from Jacob Wolf Oppenheimer, was a prominent member of this secret society. Furthermore, the infamous Manhattan Project planning was held at Bohemian Grove in 1942, in which Julius Robert Oppenheimer was integral in the development of the atomic bomb. Think of the vast consequences perpetrated on humanity because of this secret meeting. None of this is a coincidence and shows the finite connections found between these ancient bloodline members all along. Whatever your predetermined conclusions for this information are, these connections simply cannot be ignored any longer and provide windows to the truth. When trying to understand the purpose of these secret organizations under the Illuminati, we must first consider why these particular men were chosen in the first place and what each one represented on a global scale. If we look at the three names mentioned above, for Bush, Ford, and Oppenheimer, a clear picture begins to emerge, which shows the domination over world politics, energy, and war. Remember, there are no such things as coincidences, only the illusion of them. You begin to realize that nearly every aspect of our timeline has been shaped by their collaboration for control. Our planet, our home, has been devastated by these monsters who have stripped much of its natural resources and heavily polluted the minds of the people. Blocked at every turn in history, the truth is that our society would be completely running on clean and sustainable energy already, if not for this alternate future that has been forced to occur. Instead of looking at the past world events as random, we must see them for what they really are, a designed future for us allowing an agenda. Indoctrination in this society within the Illuminati gives fame and wealth, but with a steep price. It is the same thing that has been happening for thousands of years, with bribing and allowing power in exchange for freedom. This may sound like an elaborate movie plot, but I assure you this is very real, and direct evidence can be clearly seen for who attends these Bohemian Grove events and who then succeeds and finds wealth and fame. It has become a joke in our culture, as have many of the truths, seemingly right out in the open. The Illuminati, comprising the major ruling elite families, became the controllers of all finances, war, and major activities across the earth. World politics, completely infiltrated and bought, used propaganda to spread fear and instability across the planet, keeping humans in a constant stagnant state. These politicians and leaders are normally nothing more than an empty shell, willing to do just enough to not have mass unrest. We receive just enough freedom to have the illusion that we are free. In the last speech that the great John F. Kennedy gave before he was silenced, he spoke extensively about these secret societies and those who control all world affairs. He wished to rid the planet of this cancer, which has spread to every corner of humanity, and finally bring freedom to the people. In his last statement, he said, quote, "Man will be what he was born to be, free and independent," end quote. That sentence speaks volumes for what the illusion of us really represents at its core. The underlying truth in all of this is that by becoming fully aware, you also become free as well. Freedom does not imply end at physical chains, but on every facet of what makes us human. Not even presidents are out of the reach for these secret societies, which all make up the Illuminati. A critical component when understanding the relationship between governments and the secret societies that ultimately control them is through the selective basis for which information is provided to the individual, which is determined by their level of clearance to it. What that means is that even high-ranking members of government, including most presidents, do not have access to some of the most classified levels of this privileged information. In most cases, these high-ranking military generals are not even aware that they are merely pawns beneath a secret shadow government which maintains the agenda of the Illuminati. The shadow government, which functions under the veil of ultimate secrecy, operates large, underground secure facilities where they utilize and work with advanced technologies. Through a secret agreement signed between the U.S. government and the Anunnaki in 1954, an exchange of advanced technology was given to them under strict stipulations. This disastrous decision led to the complete hijacking of democracy in the United States and much of the world. It was the final nail in the coffin for our free planet. This treaty led to the complete takeover of health, education, and politics in society. Many of the suppressions of our consciousness that have slowed our expansion can be derived from this decision. Most of what we consider to be brilliant inventions that propel society forward are nothing more than the outdated technology that is allowed to the public. Many brilliant inventors like Nikola Tesla have seen their work completely destroyed, or in some cases, the individual is even murdered in order to silence them. Since new technology has the ability to rapidly transform our awareness, it had to be controlled and maintained. Trillions of dollars were funneled into these underground facilities through the monopolized banking networks of the Rothschild family dynasty. By seizing control of all monetary systems across nearly every major country of the world, these secret societies have been able to dictate almost every single social and political decision that has been made. The ultimate goal of the shadow government is to maintain and continue the agenda of the ancient bloodlines of the Illuminati, who seek to finally establish a new world order. The unfinished pyramid and the all-seeing eye on the $1 bill directly give evidence for the secret agenda for humanity. That is how so many political leaders and high-ranking military personnel are still nothing more than puppets being dangled from a string of their own awareness. We are bound by only what we understand, and everything outside of that perception is considered not real to us. Humanity must wake up to who the real owners of our supposed democracy really are. A special task group was created within the government whose purpose was to direct work with the elite families and those who they report to. This unique committee still meets today and is called the Bilderberg Group. The Bilderberg Group, which even includes the President of the United States and most of the powerful leaders in the world, meet every year to discuss how to control and maintain the release of information to the public. These secret society meetings are held out in the open with false titles hiding their true purpose. The easiest way to keep a secret is to put it out in the open as a joke so that it will be immediately discredited. The scope and magnitude of this immense design for controlling resources and human beings is the key to understanding the matrix of our conscious control. There is an old saying that says, quote, "follow the money," end quote, and it couldn't be more truthful here. Following this dirty money trail allows us to glimpse the dark underbelly to reality, where elite trillionaires directly fund each side of brutal conflicts in order to maintain instability and profit gain. By financially supporting each side of a war, The Rothschild family dynasty is able to ensure the success of human depopulation, control of consciousness through fear and tremendous monetary gains. On her deathbed, Amschel Mayer Rothschild's wife nonchalantly stated, quote, "If my sons did not want wars, there would be none," end quote. This powerful statement not only exposes the truth behind the financial influences on events, but on the systematic eradication of hundreds of millions of human beings throughout history. To gain valuable perspective on our current situation, we must recognize the insurmountable loss of human life that has been engineered on us through created genocide. Feel for a moment the tragic sadness for more than 1 billion screams becoming silenced in only a few thousand years. These parasites of humanity have profited from our deaths far too long and left in their wake despair so deep it has ruined entire generations of people. Humanity was driven to this madness through confusion and anger, derived from the worship of hijacked religions for control. It became enough to kill a man in the name of the so-called God who they represented. This tragic ideology and our lust for wealth has led to more murder and genocide than any other means in human history. A staggering 60 million people were killed in World War II alone, which was allowed to rampage across nearly the entire planet. This horrifying extermination of humanity was done for means of depopulation, eradication of the Jewish people, and the agenda for how the world has been broken up and governed. Considered to be nothing more than a simple chess match to the elites, by utilizing humanity's leftover barbarism, the ruling Illuminati family sent millions to be slaughtered for nothing more than entertainment, money, and total control through fear. One should think for a moment what the earth would be like if the Nazis had been victorious in their multiple attempts at global domination. The future would have been a terrifying, draconian society, with all freedom stripped away from even the meager few we are given. Human beings have commonly been viewed by the elite bloodline families as nothing more than troublesome, unevolved mammals who are residing on their planet. The collection of bloodline families makes up what we know of as the Illuminati and maintains total order across all of society. The advanced visitors know that through extended periods of peace, great expansion can be sought by humanity. They know that the only way to maintain total control of the population is through the creation of terror and fear. If the population begins to reject war, then false flag attacks are created to fill the void. False flag attacks are an artificially planned attack which intends to give the perception that our patriotic freedoms are in jeopardy. The built-up effect of this design anger, frustration, and hate almost snowballed into the total destruction of humanity from nuclear weapons. We may never know how close we really came to that nightmare scenario. Coming out of the brief aftermath of the last World War, society was immediately thrown into the grips of fear once again from the Cold War and the increasing threats from a nuclear holocaust. The idea of allowing peace for humanity is simply not an option for those who control society and refuse to give up the rights to this planet. Years and years of seemingly being on the edge of nuclear annihilation has created such hatred and fear across the planet that we almost count down the remaining time left for our own mutual destruction. We have been at war so long that we don't even know what true peace means any longer. That is the fundamental reason for why war is so heavily funded and alternative energy and education are just on the back burner for the illusion of democracy and freedom here. There is little interest in humanity reaching a peaceful or informed state by many of those still in control. There continues to be an ongoing attempt at the very top of the pyramid by the controlling families and powerful politicians to continue the agenda for a military society and new world order. This can be clearly seen from the viewpoint of the Republican Party in the United States and the building up of the military-industrial complex. That concludes the end of this section. Peace and blessings to you all.